believe, children, I believe that is good. I wonder would you mind if I just said it one more time? I believe that is so good.
All right, again, I want to welcome everybody for being here because this is a good day outside. I guess I ain't been outside. I don't know if it's raining or anything outside, but it started off as a lovely day. You guys could have been doing anything else besides doing this, because God knows all the rain we've been having, so everybody want to capture all these good days when you can. But guess what? You elected to come here and grace your presence here and come and get some informative information. So again, the gentleman standing next to me, brought him here last year, and quite frankly, a lot of our conscious brothers and sisters really didn't know a whole lot about Dr. Finch until last year. Dr. Finch was, I think he said it was close to 20-some years since he'd been back in Cleveland since that time, about 15 something like that? Yeah, 10, 15 years, before he made this journey back to Cleveland. So that's the big gap that he, between the time that he was here. Dr. Finch is a medical doctor. And I was just talking to him when I went checking in at the hotel that he's out there working now. He's in an Atlanta ER room. He just did a 24-hour bid before he jumped on the plane to come to Cleveland. So y'all definitely have to show the man some love. You know what I'm saying? In Atlanta, you know it's rough. The folks coming in, I'm sure you can tell some stories about what happened last night. You know what I mean? So, but I had his book, Echoes of the Dark Land, and how he got into linguistics. Linguistics is the key to a whole lot of misinformation. If you got into that, you can start studying and learning about the origins of language and names, and then guess what? You have to study the people. And by studying the people, then you get a good roundabout knowledge and history on what's going on and who's who. Because I think that's the big stumbling block in our journey for knowledge and information is knowing who's who. Who was those people and what was those? Because Greeks were great name changers. Sit down there and plagiarize everything and change the name. Because you remember going back to your school days, they always told you in Greece they called them this. You know what I'm saying? So they came in, stole a whole bunch of information, went back to Greece, and and just passed it on like they was the ones. So this particular, I don't know too many men that can say that they stopped counting at 60 times that they've been on the continent of Africa studying. That is on mainstream before us, giving us information. We don't see and we don't meet those kind of guys. A lot of our great scholars have left. This brother right here was responsible for his first and only visit, Chicago, Georgia. We say DI here in the States. This man was instrumental in him coming to America. And one of our greatest minds in these two centuries that passed here, Chicago. That's something that we need to know about. We need to know these names by verbatim, easily. You know what I'm saying? There should be something Greek or something that we have to think about and scratch our head when somebody say, "Our kids should know that name." This man defended and gave us some, Chicago did, and that informed, I think, 74, 76, with Egyptologists, Dr. Finch, one of them. The one that he battled all the 20 Egyptologists.
The Cairo Symposium
in 73. Obenga, with Theophilus Obenga. Two brothers against 18 to 20 other Egyptologists, and they dust them off. They couldn't even defend that because the whole argument and debate was the Egyptians black? And this man and his several doctrines proved it in every one of them that the Egyptians were black. And soon after that, the great pharaohs and kings, they took underground. You come with the melanin dose test. So this is, you know, and as my brother mentioned last time when he did the introduction, Gerald Massey was a white man. And this guy, back in the day when he was having new finds, was writing updated stuff that was coming through. And wrote 3 volumes. Book of the Beginnings, Egypt, Light of the World, what's the last one? Natural Genesis. And Dr. Finch right here said it took him 10 years to get through those books. Wow. 10 years. Y'all hear that? 10 years. That's how heavy documented that information was. So, without further ado, I know you've been sitting and you're cold, you know, but it's going to be well worth it. Without further ado, I want to present to you, y'all show them a warm Cleveland, Ohio welcome to Dr. Charles S. Finch III.
Very bold. Very bold.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Good. Glad to see Pittsburgh is well represented. Between Kaka and Lynn, these are 2 men who labor in the vineyards, unsung, unheralded, bringing something to their communities that not enough people really kind of appreciate the effort they put in. You know, you find that so often our most important contributors are those who, like these hidden heroes, basically, what, black liberation. I mean, we talk about black liberation, but these soldiers are out there literally fighting for black liberation. That's right. And we know there are, what, 100, 200,000 of them? And that they provided the, what do you want to say, turned the tide of the war against the Confederacy, because you got to understand, the Union Army was getting its butt beat backwards and forwards for about the first 3 years of the war. They were out-generaled, out-fought, out everything. Finally, there was some leadership that came to the fore. Grant, Sherman, Sheridan, Thomas.
All from Ohio, by the way.
Hey, that's right. All from Ohio. We were all from Ohio. That's right. And the black soldiers. What wasn't mentioned about Fort Pillow, you know who that was, who led that massacre? Nathan Bedford Forrest. Now, if he had done nothing but that would be something to live in infamy, but he was the founder of the Ku Klux Klan after the war. Nathan Bedford Forrest. So, you know, after there came a point in the war where, as was said, black soldiers said, you know, it's either fight or die. It's either win or die. Because we're going to get killed anyway. You see, I don't want to get too much on this. I'm getting away from the subject, but I was so inspired by the previous conversation that I kind of have something to say about it. There is a...
That worked.
Yeah. It worked. But the greatest strategist in world history was a Chinese gentleman named Sun Tzu, whose Art of War is famous all over the world. He says, you never ever put an enemy in a position where he has nowhere to go, where he has nothing to do but fight for it, because then his fighting becomes desperate. And this is basically the situation that the Confederacy, Nathan Bedford Forrest, put black soldiers in. One other thing, and then we will go into our discussion, and that is simply this. The point was made about Hollywood and how so many things get, as it were, misconstrued and misrepresented. That includes, by the way, House. Medicine doesn't happen that way. I'm an ER physician. I've been a physician now since 1976. How long is that? 34 years, something like that, 35 years. Life in the ER, Grey's Anatomy, it doesn't happen that way. And I'll tell you the most important. First of all, you don't have the exotic, unusual diseases that they confront every single day. You might, there's some diseases I read about that I never confronted for 30 years. That's number one. Second thing, when someone comes into the emergency room, even when it's life-threatening, there's never seconds to save a life. There's always minutes. You always have 5 or even 10 minutes to save a life. So it's never a thing, well, if I don't make this right decision in the next 5 seconds, this patient is going to die. But as you say, dramatic effects. So we have to take that into consideration when we think about how, as you say, Hollywood dramatizes some of the most important aspects of history in so many ways, whether it be war or medicine. Let's not even talk about the mummy movies. That's real strange, but that's a whole other subject. But let us get to our subject, the Nile Valley sources of the Old Testament. Egyptian archetypes of the Judaic religion. You know, I have been studying in independent fashion ancient African history since 1971. How long is that? That's 40 years. And I shake on the joke literally to the hour of his death. I mean, this is not an exaggeration. This is not just the metaphor. He was teaching and studying. He literally fell over and died as he was lecturing. To the very end of his life. Now, why do I say that, make that point? Because the more you study about the ancient Nile Valley, Northeast African civilization, the more you realize that for 200 years of Egyptology, where we have amassed tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of facts and artifacts, the more you look, you realize, the metaphor I like to use, imagine a huge cake about this size. And imagine there's icing over this cake. Imagine that huge cake almost taking up this entire area here is the history of African people. Imagine that there's icing over that cake. All we have done for the last 200 years is do this. Is we look. You cannot get to the bottom. You cannot get to the unfathomable depths of the history of people of African descent. Do you know that those satellites up in the air are finding cities beneath the desert? Yes. In Kemet and the Sudan? Whole cities that they didn't even know were there. I even said that 20 years ago to a friend of mine. Says, you know, there's probably more buried beneath the sands of ancient Kemet than there is above it. Okay? And so, there is nothing that is going on in this world right now, at this village, as we speak, culturally, scientifically, technically, philosophically, artistically, where I can't find a prototype or an archetype in ancient Northeast Africa. Wow. Name me something. I'll find an archetype there. I'll find a prototype. So all that is happening is that Solomon says nothing is new under the sun. Or I like to say the only thing that's new is that which has been forgotten. Old and forgotten truths, neglected truths, are being rediscovered and then presented as if it's new information. That, by the way, includes quantum physics and the Einsteinian physics, which I don't have with this. That isn't our topic today. But my point is that everything, and here's the other thing. This is what Chancellor Williams said in Structure of Black Civilization. He says, if people of African descent, black people, want to see how far they have fallen in the scale of human achievement, all they have to do, they do one or two things. Either go stand in the hypostyle hall of Karnak Temple, or stand before the pyramids. Then you have maybe some inkling about how far we have fallen. We're so bad, we forgot that we have forgotten. And we have our young people talking about if you got a young black male doing well in school, then the other guy's going to beat him up because you think you're white. I don't see, when I was growing up, I don't remember that. My mother used to talk about Paul Robeson. She used to talk about G. Carter Woodson. She used to talk about George Washington Carver. She used to talk about all the great scientists and scholars. And that there was a time when educational and intellectual achievement was something to be aspired to by the entire black educational community. Something happened since then. I don't know, that's a whole other discussion. I can't even grasp what has happened. Okay? Medical schools now, black males are not going to medical school anymore. I taught at Morehouse School of Medicine for 24 years. I'm not just taught, but I've done staff at Morehouse School of Medicine for 24 years. And by the way, I'm not making an adverse comment about the sisters. You know, they're taking care of business, they take care of business, but 75% now of all entering classes in the Morehouse School of Medicine are women. I mean, they're going to be, if they're out there taking care of business, then they have a right to profit and be rewarded for their activities, but the males, they're not there. I'm just telling you, they're not there. Atlanta University is now basically mostly an all-women school. Clark Atlanta University. I just can't fathom it. I really can't. I don't know what, I can't imagine what has happened. But as I say, so my point is that it's just a way of making a point that when you start thinking of looking at where we are now from where we have come, it just boggles the imagination. Now, it is said, if you want to know the future, look to the past. The past is not something that is dead. Even William Faulkner said that. He said the past is not dead. He says not even past. So history is not merely something in which you just, what do you want to say? History is not something you study in class, close the book and forget about it and say, well, that's irrelevant to any of our present circumstances. It is the narrative, the master narrative of who we are. I read this columnist, black columnist by the name of Leonard Pitts. He writes for Man Herald. That's what he said. History is the master narrative of who we are. You can't go forward. You can't have any hope for the future. We talk about hope and change without that fundamental grounding in historical context. Now, Nile Valley sources of the Old Testament. Even though this is going to be a slide presentation, we're going to go through this step by step. In some ways, it's kind of hard to know where to begin, in some sense. Let's say this. By their own historical report, the people who became the children of Israel, later on the Hebrews. And by the way, let me say this. All Jews were Hebrews, but not all Hebrews were Jews. You understand that, right? Especially after Solomon, when 10 of the tribes separated from Judah and Benjamin and formed the country of northern Israel for King Samaria. So the children of Israel is not exactly synonymous with Jews. All Jews are Hebrews, or remember the children of Israel, but not all children of Israel are Jews. That's kind of an important nuance to understand. Be that as it may, if you look at the Torah, which is our Old Testament, they say they were in Kemet, Egypt, Northeast Africa, for 430 years. How did they get there? They were a marginal, ragged, hungry, literally hungry, starving band of illiterate shepherds who came into Egypt, again, to stave off death by starving. Now that's in the story of Joseph, isn't it? I mean, I'm not making this up. It's right there in your Old Testament, in your Torah. So they didn't have, I'm not saying they didn't have culture, they didn't have culture in the way Egypt had culture. They had no language, no written language, had no written language, no science, no theology. They didn't even have, I don't care what they say, they didn't even have a concept of one God. That's right. Why? Because if you look in Genesis, what does it say? Let us make man in our own image. They use the plural to describe the Creator. And they talk later on, also in Genesis, about the sons of God intermarrying with the daughters of men. Now wait a minute, there's some sort of disconnect there. I thought there was only Yahweh in the Old Testament. No. Yahweh is late. And Yahweh is only at Sinai. That's what Yahweh says. You didn't know me before Moses. I did not tell you what my name was. I am that I am. That's all. So the idea that the ancient patriarchs were
word monotheistic is just one of those convenient fictions that actually has nothing to do with the reality. I mean, all you have to do is read their own records in what we call the Torah or the Old Testament. So, if they, okay, but let's even assume that these people who came in were there for 430 years. They were, at least for some time. I don't know what they were when they came in. They were probably a band of a group, a tribal group, small tribal group of Canaanites. But within a few generations, they would have what? Been speaking Egyptian. They would have been culturally Egyptian. And since they had a habit of intermarrying wherever they were, they would have looked like Egyptians. And who were the Egyptians? I always say the ancient Egyptians, the pyramid builders, all the way down to and beyond the time of Christ, were black Africans less mixed than African Americans today. Okay? Even Tacitus says so. So, whoever they were when they came in, by the time they left, they did leave, there was an exodus. There are reasons for that too. There was an exodus. Not exactly the way it's described in the Old Testament. They were culturally, linguistically, and yes, ethnically Egyptian. It's a strange idea, especially since so much of evangelical preaching talks about the evil Pharaoh, oppressed Jews and Hebrews, and they did not build the pyramids. There were no Jews or Hebrews when the pyramids were being built. They didn't exist. Abraham was not born until about 1,000 years after the pyramids were built. Now, so this is just kind of a background, if you will, preamble for our discussion. The Nile Valley sources of the Old Testament. Let's look at Nile Genesis, the Old Testament Genesis, and what he says. It's said in Genesis, in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth without form and void. The darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the waters, face of the waters, excuse me. And some, I think if you go back to the original Hebrew, it doesn't say God, it says Elohim. Elohim again is plural, but okay. But let's look at these. Created heaven and earth without form and void, darkness upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. Let's look at the right hand, and this is what we'll do. We're going to have these, I don't know what it says, table, this is the word. And on the left will be kind of Old Testament, and then we will make comparisons to the theology and ideas of the Nile Valley, okay, of Northeast Africa. Make no mistake about that. Egypt is not now, nor has it ever been in the Middle East. Egypt is, as it has always been, in Africa. Okay, there is, you know when the term Middle East was actually coined was 105 years ago by an American admiral, historian of naval history by the name of Mahan. He is the one that coined the term Middle East. We have this idea that there's a fixed idea, a fixed geopolitical reality, when in fact, even the term is just about a century old and no more. Okay. Let's look at the Egyptian four primordial pairs of creation. Nun or Nut, the male-female aspects of the primal waters. Okay? Hehu Hehu, the male-female aspects of eternity. Keku Keku, the male and female aspects of the primal darkness. Amen or Keh, Ament or Kehet, the male and female aspects of the hidden or invisible, sometimes referred to as inactivity and inertness. So every one of those formative ideas in that opening passage of Genesis, which we just read, can be found, as it were, as manifestations of powers that created the universe in the ancient Nile Valley system. The primal waters, eternity, primal darkness, and the aspect of hiddenness, all of which have male and female characteristics. Now, Hebrew as a written language didn't start until about the 10th century BC. The first one to write, okay, the people who were the children of Israel leave Egypt. And for 300 years, they wander in the desert for an indeterminate amount of time. Finally settled in Canaan. They had their oral traditions. We'll come back to that in a minute. None of those oral traditions that would include legends, myth, as well as ethnic history, do not become, there's no formal writing of it until, interestingly enough, the time of the judge, Deborah. There's actually a female judge who writes the first books of the Torah. And that's about 300 years after the so-called Exodus, maybe a little longer. The point is that when they came out of Kemet, came out of Egypt, came out of the Nile Valley, even though they eventually created a language which we know as Hebrew, that language would have been maximally impacted by the language of the country where they spent 430 years, just like English is. English is German, French, Latin, Greek, even has some Spanish, Indian, even has some African terms. So a history of a language is like a history of a people. And no language is pure. It always takes in influences from its origin as well as its continuing interface with, throughout history. So it is impossible for not to be able to find powerful Egyptian or Nile Valley elements in the language of Egypt, and you particularly see it in names. Now let's look at Adam, the image of God. In the King James is Adam. In Hebrew is Aham. The attributes: he's the first man in the image of God. He is the completion of creation, the father of humanity, and namer of all things. In Egypt, he is Atum, the first God in the image of man. Atum is the first ancient Egyptian neter or god who was given a human form, male form, man form. And At in Egyptian means father, Tem means humanity. Atum is father of humanity. The root Tem also means to complete. So he is the one who completes creation, and the cognate Tem and Dem are the same, which means to name. So he is the namer, just like Adam was. And he's the divine father. So Adam, archetypally, is related to the Egyptian neter, Atum. We talk a lot about Atum because basically the Sphinx, which is now known to be about 12,000 years old, is Atum. So let's explain the explanatory at the bottom. Adam Atum is the first man, the father of humanity, the image of God, the completer of creation, the namer of all things. So all of that comes into the Torah in this figure, person of Adam or Aham, out of ancient Kemet. This is from, I think this is from the Sistine Chapter. Adam, the first man, made in the image of God. Okay, this is the best I could do. I couldn't find anything better than that. So I could brought to life by the touch of the hand of the Creator. Eve, mother of humanity. In the King James Version, she is Eve. In Hebrew, she is Hava. Hawa, Hava. There's a guttural sound to the CH phoneme that I can't really make very easily. Hava. Her attributes: she is the mother of humanity. She is seduced or suborned by the serpent, and she is plucked the fruit of the tree of knowledge. In Egyptian, the cognate or related word or name is Hewa. Hefa or Hewa. Hefa, like Hava is Hava or Hawa. Hava, Hawa. Hefa is serpent and Hewa is fruit. So Hava as Hefa, Hewa, that is Eve, Hava, Hawa is the great mother as the cosmic serpent of creation. She is also related to Hathor Nut, goddess of the sycamore tree, giving fruit to the weary soul in Mensa. In Arabic, Hawe also means serpent. So the point is, in the Egyptian form, she doesn't have this what is the word? She does not have this negative attributes that are associated with her in the Old Testament. But you see, the archetypes are still the same. Tree, serpent, fruit, all that was female. All that was maternal. The great cosmic mother serpent is one of the earliest deities in the ancient African universe. Still is very important. And that comes is transformed in the Old Testament into Eve, although she's given human guise, and she is set up against the serpent. Or the serpent set up against her. But it really is her. It's a little strange to think about if your mind is completely, conditioned by our images and our ideas that come to us from a reading and studying of the Old Testament. Eve, serpent, and tree. In other words, serpent, tree, and fruit is all feminine, is all Eve. Because this is the thing about nectars. They have different levels of symbolism. They're not just one thing. They symbolize different things that are in some sense related. And we could even talk about, I don't think we'll have time, but if we do, remind me to say something about it. We can talk about how the serpent fell in the heavens 3,600 years ago. And that was the reason why the serpent fell when climbed down from the tree in Genesis. There's an astronomical version of this, also from Kevin. Please remind me if we have time at the end to go into that. I don't want to get into too much because we have a lot to try to cover today. The Garden of Eden, the enclave of paradise. The King James Version is called Eden. Hebrew is called Adam. The attributes of the Garden of Paradise in Genesis are shown as the great enclosure in religious motifs. In Egypt, it's den, which means enclosure. So the Garden of Eden is taken straight from the Egyptian funerary ritual, depicted as a great enclosure filled with luxurious plant life and flowing waters on an aegis of peace and plenty, and coolness to the delight of the manes, that's the souls, after the harrowing journey through Amenta. So the garden is not where you started and began. The garden is what you achieved as a result of a perfect life. The garden is where you get to as a result of a beatification. Okay? The Eden, the Garden of Paradise. And the Egyptian resurrected spirit refreshing in the garden of the afterlife. It's the very same. That garden imagery comes right out of Egypt. Egyptians are almost obsessed with gardens because they lived in a hot, dry, desert-like environment. And so particularly if you had money, you created small lakes on your property and you created these lush gardens. And then you and the family and friends would spend not your days inside, but in the garden. So the garden was something that was central to Egyptian life. Nod, the land east of Eden. Because, when Cain was driven out of Eden, he dwelt in the land of Nod. And King James is Nod, Hebrew is Nud. Now, the attributes is Nod is the land east of Eden where Adam and Eve settled when driven out of the garden. Egyptian, Nod, Nud, and Nud. The word is almost exactly the same, which means outside of and away from. So the land of the Nod, in the Hebrew idea, is away from what? The garden. Is a place designated by God for Adam and Eve to live once banished from the garden. It's the land outside, as shown in the Egyptian Nud. Cain, he who strikes. Cain is in King James. Cain in Hebrew is Cain. The attribute is he committed the first crime by striking down Abel. The Egyptian is Ken. His meaning in the Ken, which is exactly the word from which the Hebrew Cain, which is Cain, comes from, means to strike down and to beat. So in other words, the attributes of Cain are embodied in what he did. He struck down his brother Abel, and that is how his name comes about. Cain's deed is revealed in the Egyptian word from which his name is derived. Abel, the first sacrificial victim. Abel, in Hebrew is Habel. He's killed by Cain because his lamb food offering was accepted by God. Egyptian is Habir. Hab means feast, Ir means right. Abel Habir is a ritual feast, the food offering to God. You see, we start looking at these things in this way, all of a sudden, the Old Testament starts having layers that you didn't even know that were there. A lot of layers. And when you start going below the surface, when you start plumbing down into the depths, where do you find yourself? Kevin, now about psychologically, mythically, archetypally, theologically. This is just, again, another painting of Abel being struck down. Noah, the fertilizing flood. King James is Noah. The Hebrew is Nuach. The attributes: he survives the flood, he's the master of the flood. Noah is Nuach. He's the master, but he's also the master cultivator and grape grower, because afterwards, after the flood subsides, he is the one that brings agriculture and grape growing back into the world. But he becomes drunk on wine. That famous story. The Egyptian, Hebrew Nuach, in Egyptian is Nuach, saying almost exactly the same, or also Nu. Nu is the flood of heaven in ancient Egypt. Ak is the irrigated field. Nu is drunkenness. Okay, let's put it all together in the explanation. Noah, Nuach, and Nuach irrigates and fertilizes the field through the annual Nile flood. Herodotus said that Egypt is a gift of the river, because every year in the summertime, the floods from Africa, the river from Africa would flood, kind of like the Mississippi is doing now, and inundate the entire country. Now the flood was not considered a disaster, far from it. It brought back, fertilized, and rejuvenated Egyptian land every year. So this is the rejuvenating flood. So, this flood irrigates and fertilizes the field through the annual Nile flood. And remember what we said about Noah. Noah is also the cultivator. He's the flood and he's also the cultivator. So it was Nu, or Hapi, but Nu. Hapi Nu. The Egyptian Nu, N-U-H, indicates Noah's drunken episode in Genesis, making him a type of Osiris Dionysus, or a priest of that deity, because you see Osiris is the one who was supposed to have brought the gift of wine, grape growing to the world, and wine making. The other thing too is, once upon a time, it was only the priests who drank wine. Okay? Wine as a common everyday drink was much later. So Noah as Nuach is, on the one hand, Egyptian Nu. He's also, in some sense, Osiris. We can talk about the dove and the crow in a minute if we get a chance. Ham, the biblical father of the black race. The King James version is Ham, in Hebrew is Ham. He is one of Noah's 3 sons. He is the eponymous, that means you give your name to someone. He is the eponymous ancestor of all black peoples in Egypt, Ethiopia, and Canaan. Remember, because who were the 3 sons of Noah? 4 sons, actually. Cush, which is Ethiopia, Mizraim, which is Egypt, Put, which they're not sure where that is. They think it might be Phoenicia, and Canaan, which is kind of interesting in and of itself. And someone asked me that question later on. We'll talk about that. It comes from the Egyptian word kam, which is the strongest word in the Egyptian language for black. And it was a name for Egyptian land and people. Sorry. Turn this off. So sorry. The Hebrew Ham is an ethnonym, that is an ethnic name derived from the strong Egyptian word meaning blackness, and geographically encompasses all Northeast Africa. Egypt was in 25 places in the Old Testament. It's called the land of Ham. So here, the Old Testament is telling you who the Egyptians were, what they looked like, and what their ancestry was. Nubian princes, sons of Cush, 18th dynasty. Shem, father of the Semites. In King James, Shem, in Hebrew is Shem. He is the son of Noah, ancestor of the Semitic peoples of Western Asia. Egyptian Sem means traveler or wanderer. Why? Because the Egyptians first encountered the Semitic peoples as nomadic pastoralists inhabiting Western Asia. That's why they call them wanderers. In other words, you could say in Egyptian also could mean nomads. That's what they were starting, and that's what they started out at. This is a panel of races on a wall in the tomb of Ramesses III, 1180 BC. On the far left, you see the Sudanese, son of Ham. The northern Libyans were more like, or probably the children of Shem. The Egyptians, again, were on that's the third. Here's the Sudanese. Here's the northern Libyans. These are the Egyptians right here, the third. Those over here, Sudanese, Libyans, Egyptians. Also, sons of Ham and the Western Asians, sons of Shem. But here the Egyptians are showing you who they are, what they look like, and where they come from. So there should not even be any argument about who these people are, where they come from, and where they belong. There should be absolutely no argument on that account. And yet 200 years have been spent trying to prove otherwise. Japheth, Indo-European ancestor. King James, Japheth. Hebrew, Yaphet. Attributes, the son of Noah, ancestor of the Indo-European peoples. In Egypt, this is Yaphet. Ya means island, Pet is heaven, that is the North Pole. Okay, that heaven in the ancient Egyptian system was in the North Pole because they were in the Northern Hemisphere. We can talk, like I said, we have time, we'll talk more about that. So Yaphet means island of heaven. Since heaven was situated at the North Pole, these were in reality the northern islands, either the Aegean or North Atlantic islands. These were the first Indo-Europeans with whom the Egyptians were in contact. These are the Kuru statues of Greece. These would have been representatives of Japheth, the sons or children of Japheth, among others. Abraham and Ra. Boy, I tell you, this is where we're going to get into it with the evangelicals. If you're an evangelical, this is not going to be for you. I'm just going to tell you right now. You're not going to like it. Okay, I'm warned. Okay. King James, Abraham. Hebrew is Abraham, or Abram, or Abraham. The attributes, he's the first patriarch of two branches of Semites, Hebrews and Arabs. After visiting Egypt, he establishes circumcision as a sign of God's covenant. After he visits Egypt, he establishes circumcision as a sign of God's covenant. Now in Egypt is two different ways of looking at his name, both of which are equally resonant. There's Ra-Abrahim or Ra-Abraham. Ab means desire or will. Ra is the Egyptian sun god, god of the sun. Im means light or fire, and Hem is servant. So, Abraham is the desire for light, for the light of Ra. Abraham is the servant of Ra's will. Ra, the Egyptian god of circumcision, the Egyptians say it was Ra who introduced circumcision to Egypt, exercised his foreskin in the act of creation. Thus, Abraham's link to Ra is cemented. So, even the patriarchs have a mythical essence derived from the neters, the powers, the archetypes, the divine prototypes of ancient Egypt. Abraham is the form of Ra. You hear this scene goes back, I don't know, I think this goes back about 4,000 years. All the Greeks say that circumcision was practiced by three peoples first: Egyptians, Cushite, and the Colchians. So clearly, that practice, that custom that's still practiced among Jews today, comes directly down out of the experience of being in ancient Egypt. And it's connected to Ra, and it's connected to Abraham, who was a Hebrew form of Ra. Ishmael in the place of affliction. King James Ishmael. Hebrew is Ishmael. The attributes: he is the son of Abraham by Hagar, who is what? The Egyptian handmaiden. He is the son of Abraham by Hagar, who was afflicted by Sarah's jealousy, an ancestor of the Arabs. The Egyptian is Ismail. Why? Because In terms of linguistics, particularly when you're going in between languages, L and R are interchangeable. The Chinese can't say R very well, so they say L. The Japanese can't say L very well, so they say R. So L and R are interchangeable, okay, linguistically speaking. So Is place, Ma'ir is affliction. So Ishmael, as Ishmael, refers to the place of affliction where the Lord tells Hagar that he has seen her affliction but will take care of her. And he is born as a result of that. Or no, he isn't just born, he's already born. And the other thing too is that many of these biblical characters start off with one name and then they end up with another. But that happens in Africa too, by the way. That happens in a lot of different places, doesn't it? Stalin wasn't originally Stalin. Neither was Lenin. That was their nom de guerre, their war name. Okay? But the place of affliction is reflected in the name of Ishmael because that is where the Lord succors, if you might say, his mother Hagar, who herself is Egyptian. Isaac, the burnt offering. Isaac in King James, Ishak in Hebrew, attributes, he is Abraham's son, destined to be sacrificed as a burnt offering. In Egypt is Ishak. East means place, Ak is burnt offering. It's exact. I mean, some of this is so exact. It's just, I don't know how else to say it. It's just, you don't even have to infer. It's right there. Isaac is the place of the burnt offering, showing Isaac's link to Ra through his connection to fire, Ra's sacred element. Because remember, he was supposed to be sacrificed as a burnt offering to Ra, burnt offering to God, but then God sends instead what? A lamb or a sheep. But whenever you have a burnt offering, anything that's connected to fire in ancient Egypt is connected to Ra. Jacob, the circuit of the sun and the moon. Jacob in King James, Yakub in Hebrew, he's the second son of Isaac. He is the second son of Isaac. In Egypt is Yakeb. Yah or Yah is a golden ass, a type of rock, because if you look at scenes on the Egyptian planisphere, you see the boat of Ra being pulled in the heavens by a golden ass. Okay, and that is actually a form of Ra. Yah is also the Egyptian moon god, and Keb is circuit. Yakeb is therefore the circuit of the sun as the golden ass, but it's also, Yakeb may be also the circuit of the moon. And we'll pick this up, we'll continue with this because it continues to come back to it here in a minute. Israel, father of the Hebrew. King James is Israel, Hebrew is Israel. Experienced a vision of the ladder on which Israel, as Jacob, he was first Jacob, but then became Israel, experienced a vision of the ladder on which moved the heavenly hosts. He wrestled with the angel and saw the face of the Lord. This is Jacob, Israel. In Egypt, he's called Israel. Is is place. Ra is the sun god and creator. Ir is create. Israel, i.e. Israel, but in Egypt, Israel means the place that Ra created. That is the place in Amenta, the underworld, where the ladder of Ra enabled souls to climb to the sun above. Just like Jacob Israel had the vision of the ladder, of the angels or the souls, heavenly hosts moving up down the ladder. There in Amenta, the place of where souls are resurrected, there's also a ladder where souls climb to Ra. So Israel is Ra is one of the 75 forms of Ra. Again, you see so much of these ancient Egypt patriarchs are related to Ra. This is Ra Heliopolis, usually shown as you see here as a golden falcon. It also has other forms of the city. Can sometimes be shown as a golden ass, but mostly as a golden falcon. Joseph, who leads Hebrews to Egypt. King James is Joseph, in Hebrew is Yusuf. He is the favorite son of Jacob Israel. the Hebrew type of Ra, the first of the children of Israel to dwell in Egypt. In Egyptian, Yusuf is Yusefi or Yusef. Yu means to come. You is a golden ass. Sephi is child. Sep is the name of Osiris. So Yusefi is the coming child. Horus. Yusefi is the son of Yu, the golden ass. Yusef is the coming Osiris. Since the golden ass is the form of Ra, the son of Yu is Horus, as Yusefi, the coming child, and for that matter, the coming Osiris. Where else do we find the coming child? The prototype, the archetypes of all of what we think of Judeo-Christian religion. Moses, the Hebrew Horus. King James is Moses, Hebrew is Moshe. He was carried in an ark of bulrushes as an infant, found in the Sea of Reeds, becomes the Hebrew Savior. In Egyptian, Moses, Moshe becomes Musha or Musa. Mu is sea or pool. Sha is reeds. Sa means to draw from. Musa is the Sea of Reeds, or he drew from the water. Now, Horus was born in the Sea of Reeds. In Exodus, Pharaoh's daughter names the infant Moses because, as she says, I drew him from the water. Moses is thus a type of Horus. Even today, everybody knows that Moses is not a Hebrew name. Never was a Hebrew name. It only came into the Hebrew language with this figure of Moses. I drew him from the water. So even the biblical people who make their livelihood studying the Bible know that the name Moses is an Egyptian name, and it relates to drawing from the water, and we see why and what that means. And also being born in the Sea of Reeds, or the Ark of the Bulrushes. The Pharaoh's daughter finds him in the Sea of Reeds. Moses found him on the Sea of Reeds. That means I drew him from the water. This is the birth of Horus in a Sea of Reeds. Moses, son of Osiris. According to Josephus against Abion, the Egyptian priest Abion insists that Moses was originally the Egyptian priest of Ra, whose name was Osarsif, whose literal meaning, since Sif means son, is the son of Osiris. So the original name, that's what I told you, these names, people don't keep their names when they are significant actors, shall we say, in the divine drama or in the historical drama even. So his original name, according to Egyptians themselves, is Osarsif, meaning son of Osiris. Apion states that only after Osarsif led a body of religious descendants out of Egypt sometime between 1250 and 1230 BC, he changed his name to Moses. Therefore, Osarsif Moses was in fact Horus as the son of Osiris. Horus, the re-arising Osiris. So Horus is the resurrected manifestation of Osiris. The two are the same, basically, although considered father and son. Talk about that too. Aaron, priest of the golden calf. King James versus Aaron. In Hebrew is Achron. He is a fashioned and high priest of the golden calf. The Egyptian is Achron. Ah means bull, Ren means calf. Aaron Achron is derived from the Egyptian Aren, bull calf, which, since Osiris has a bull form, is also a type of Horus. Osiris, one of his earliest forms one of his earliest manifestations was a bull. Him and Ptah and Apis all had a bull form. So when you talk about a bull calf, would be the childlike form of Osiris, that would be Horus. Aaron is the priest of the Osirian or Abius bull, whose age at the time of Exodus had come and gone. I don't know if we have time to talk about that. Aaron, as Achron, is also considered to be the son of Hathor, the golden cow. Hence, the fashioning of the golden calf. The anger of Yahweh and Moses, ignited by the Hebrews, returned to the worship of a mythic icon whose time, in the age of Taurus, the bull, had passed. The golden calf of Egypt, wearing the disk of the sun. Aaron was his priest. Hebrews worshiping the golden calf at Sinai. this is where you see Mount Sinai in the background, which was, by the way, a volcano. And that is where not only did the Hebrews get the Decalogue or the Ten Commandments, but they first got the name of Yahweh that was given to them, or just as their deity, who had saved them. The Decalogue, the Hebrew, and the Declarations of Innocence, Egyptian. The Decalogue is just like the Ten Commandments, okay? And there are 6 of them that are almost exactly identical. The Declarations of Innocence in ancient Egypt. I have not cursed the God. 10 Commandments in the book of Exodus. Thou shalt not take the name of God in vain. In the Declarations of Innocence, book of Dead, I have not slain man nor woman. 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not kill. Declarations of Innocence. I have not committed theft. 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not steal. Declarations of Innocence, book of the Dead. I have not set my mouth in motion against any man. 10 Commandments, book of Exodus. Thou shalt not bear false witness. Declaration of Innocence. I have not defiled the wife of another man. 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. Declaration of Innocence. I have not defrauded the oppressed of his property. 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's goods. So you can almost see that there's almost a direct borrowing out of the Declaration of Innocence that come into the book of Exodus and the 10 Commandments, or at least 6 of them. Yahweh, the moon increases. The King James name is Jehovah. Hebrew is Yahweh. He is the God of Moses, introduced to the Hebrews at Mount Sinai, the sole and exclusive God of Israel. The Egyptians also had a name for this God, Yah. There was an Egyptian God, Yah, which we will see. And there's the Egyptian word Wa. So Yah is the moon deity, is Jehudi or Osiris, because Yah is a lunar deity or moon deity. Wa means to grow or increase. So Yahweh is Yahweh, is the increasing moon, a type of Osiris personifying the moon that from new moon or reborn moon waxes to fullness. Because the Hebrews eventually became connected, shall we say, to what they call the lunar mythology, which is the reason why you have the 7 days of the week, among other things. The reason why they follow the lunar year, as do Muslims. God Yah of Egypt. So but long before there was a Yahweh, when the Hebrews, there was a Yah of Egypt. 25, and also throughout the Old Testament, Yahweh is again and again just called Yah. The increasing moon. Jews, children of the moon. King James, Jew, word. Hebrew name for Jew is Yehudi. Attributes, one of the 12 tribes of Israel. Judah is influenced by the lunar mythology. The Egyptian form would be Jehudi, almost exactly the same as the Hebrew Yahudi, the name of Thoth, the most important male lunar deity. Through Moses, the Jews put aside the solar deity, exemplified by Ra Israel, in favor of an older lunar deity derived from the Egyptian lunar mythology of Thoth and Osiris. It was in its way a sort of reformation to return to the purity of the ancient religion. So they were, as it were, immersed psychologically, mythologically, and religiously in what we call a lunar religion. That's what Judaism started out to be. And that too came from Kemet through Jehudi and Thoth, and Osiris too. Satan, second coming of Seth. King James has the name, gives us the name Satan. Hebrew, same thing, Satan, the biblical embodiment of absolute evil. In Egypt, we have the figure of Set. And then there is the word An. Well, what does An mean? Set is the Egyptian great adversary, the evil one, the one who is the murderer of Osiris. An means again. Satan, as Set An, is Set again. That is the second manifestation of Set. Like Set, Satan is represented as red in color with a tail and horns. Yes, ma'am.
Isn't he known as Septet?
Yes, a lot of different names. That is a name. Set had a, in spite of the fact he had this bad reputation late, he had a lot of followers, a lot of worshipers. In Canaan too, as well as in Egypt. And in that form, he was called Setet. Set was a very interesting deity. He was not satanic. Satan, the satanic aspect only appears in Judeo-Christianity and Islam too. But again, that's more of an explanation. Joshua, beloved of Yahweh. The King James Version is Joshua, in Hebrew is Yahushua. He is the successor of Moses, the first Hebrew king and conqueror. Egyptian is Yahushua. Yah is Egyptian for Yahweh. Ushua is adore. Wa is one. Yahushua means one whom Yahweh adores. There were 4 Joshuas in the Bible, 3 in the Old Testament. The 3rd Joshua is called the Lord's Anointed. The 4th Joshua in the New Testament, whom the Jews call Jesus, becomes the anointed savior of a new religion.
Don't get him blood.
He was the one that Yahweh adores. Now remember, when we say about Jesus, Yahushua, he spent, there are some who say he only lived 33 years, and others say he lived 52 years. We don't have time to go into that. Either way, where did he spend most of his life? Egypt. Oh, you want me to stop a minute? You're trying to change the... is reducible to infinitely fine strings that cross each other as in a spider's web. And the Dogon talk about that in the creation of the universe, God of the spider spun the web of the universe. Okay, what does that mean? Does that mean that, what I'm saying is that they're using mythical language to express concepts that do not readily lend themselves to didactic speech. Okay? So to say that this is mythological doesn't mean that it's fictional. You can think of more of it as symbolic and allegorical if you would. Everything is mythical when you get right down to it. Okay? You know what they say? If people don't have this, they invent them. Yeah. Like George Washington cutting down the cherry tree. He never did that. The point is that there's a way in which mythology is a symbol, is a symbolic narrative of reality. And all peoples until the last 200 years spoke and thought and wrote symbolically. Everybody used to do that. And we're finding ourselves coming back to it. And so when you hear people say, oh, well, that's a myth, as if that's a lie, that's a misapplication of the word. That's not what it means. That's not what it is. Okay? It's actually the only truth that you can know. One more question before we go on. Yes, sir?
How do we move away from the literalization of religious characters?
What about it?
How do we move away from the literalization, meaning
we see that too has nuances, because you see, in the case of Jesus, as I say in my book, Echoes of the Old Dark Land, you had a welding of man, myth, and history. You have times when the literal history and the myth that it involved, that's why you should read Joseph Campbell. He says everybody's life is a living myth. Mm-hmm. Where the myth begins in individual lives on a small scale, but in the lives of great people, men and women on a large scale, begin to fuse with history. And when that happens, you have great movements. It happened with Buddha, it happened with Yahushua, it happened with Muhammad, it happened with Moses. I think in the end, you're going to look back in time and you're going to see the same thing happening with none other than Barack Hussein Obama. Maybe not right now, but the time will come when there will be, even Martin Luther King, there's a kind of mythic aura about him. And Malcolm.
That's right.
Yeah, that's true.
There's something more than human, shall we say, because you see, the symbolic essence of life, individual life as well as collective life, The only way it can be, as well as the universe itself, there are things that cannot be explained except by analogy. And that's what myth does. What I want you to do is, I want you to hold your questions to the end, and just remember them, write them down, and we'll take them up, okay? David the Smiter, King James, David, Hebrew, Dawood. He killed the giant Goliath with a stone flung from a sling. The Egyptian is Dawood. All these words can be found, the etymology means the origins of a word, right? You can find etymologies for all these words, these names in the Egyptian language and the Egyptian writings. So, Da means to smite. Wood means to fling. So David Dawood is Dawud, is he who strikes down Goliath. He smites by flinging a stone from his sling. His name, therefore, commemorates the deed. Though we know him as David, he had another name before that. I can guarantee you that. But we don't know what that name is. It only comes down through the historical writings of the Gospel, of the Old Testament, of the Torah writers, as David. Okay? Solomon, the sacred builder. King James, Solomon, Hebrew, Solomon. Attributes, he's the builder of the temple, great Hebrew architect. Egyptian is Sarah. Sarah means chief, Meg means cubit. The explanation is a chief or royal cubit was the standard unit of measure used in construction of all sacred buildings in Egypt. It was one of the symbols of Ptah, the divine architect. It would have been the unit of measure for the temple in Jerusalem. Solomon the Sarah was the Hebrew type of the great builder. So, that's the reason why his name, as it were, reflects this sacred unit of measure for sacred building. So this is a model of Solomon's temple. Sarah, great cow, the mother of the sun. They are often neglected, but they're, after all, women in the Bible, are they not? King James, Sarah, Hebrew, Sarai. She's the wife of Abraham, an early type of Hebrew mother. In Egyptian, she's Sari or Sarah. Sa means son, Ri, abode. Ser is chief, Ah is cow. Sarah Sarai, as the Egyptian Sari, is the abode of the sun, she who contains the sun. Hearkening from a time when the mother was the primary progenitor of the sun, S-O-N. As Sarah, she's the great cow, an early form of the golden Hathor, who is also the moon. Hathor, cow and moon goddess. Rebecca, great lunar mother. Again, we come back to this lunar ethos of ancient Hebrew life and religion. Rebecca, the Hebrew is Rebekah, wife of Isaac and mother of the twins Esau and Jacob. The Egyptian, she's Rebekah. Re means opening, Bek means to be present, pregnant. Is cow or moon. Rebecca is Rebekah, and as Rebekah represents the opening of the pregnant cow or moon, making her another type of the great lunar mother. The opening is the process of giving birth. Okay? She's a type of great lunar mother, Hathor Nut. Her name is a reference to the birth canal. Nut, sky mother, and heavenly cow. Rachel, or Hebrew oracular wise woman. In King James is Rachel, and Hebrew is Rachel. She is the Rachel, as Rachel, the wife of Jacob, carries off the gods of her father's house. In Egyptian, she is Rek-Er. Rek means wide, Er means speech. Er, again, in another language, R would be L. Okay? So Rek-Al and Rek-Er are the same. Rek-Er means knowledgeable or wise of speech. So Rachel Rek-Al as Rek-Er was a type of oracular priestess. She through whom the God spoke. This is before the Exodus. It is why she could commandeer, she could take control of the gods of her father's household, because they only spoke through her. Or to her. Asenath, Hebrew wisdom goddess. Asenath, King James, Hebrew, Asenath, she's the Egyptian wife of Joseph, in Hebrew. Egyptian, she's Asenit. Isis, Nit is Nath. Asenath, Asenit is Isis, Nath, the great goddess of Sais and the patroness of weaving. Over the door to her temple were inscribed the words, I am all that has been, is, and shall be, and no mortal shall lift my veil. To the Greeks, she was goddess Athena, goddess of wisdom, and the patron goddess of Athens. So again, what am I talking about? The archetypal, mythological, divine figures resurface in the Bible as historical individuals. This is Neith of Sais. She is wearing what you see on, what you can't see on, you only see part on her head. She is wearing the shuttlecock of a loom. Miriam, the tree of life in the water. Miriam, she's a sister of Moses. In Egyptian, she's Miriam. Mer is pool, Yam is tree. As Miriam, tree in the pool, she is a primordial tree of life, rising out of a pool identified with Hathor, pouring water from a tree to the thirsty souls of Lamenta. This imagery may also reflect the North Pole as a tree rising from the midst of the waters of heaven. The pole was always represented as a tree in ancient times, rising in the waters. And there are 7 constellations that revolve around the pole. And so these were called the lights on the tree. There lies your Christmas tree. All there, it's all there up in the heavens. They wrote the book of heaven. The image may have been suggested during the flood times in Egypt, and you know, there's a, you know, the pole star is the star closest to the pole. Well, what do we put on the top of every Christmas tree? We put a star. That's the pole star. The image may have suggested during the flood times in Egypt when the waters would have been surrounding the trees, giving light to them and the whole country. This is it. Miriam, the tree in the garden pool, refreshing the souls in the afterlife. This becomes Miriam in the Old Testament. Deborah, mother of judges of celestial time. Deborah, Hebrew Deborah, first judge of Israel, authored the first book of the Torah. I've already said this. She wrote the first book of the Old Testament, or the Torah. Deborah, in Egyptian, Deb is a great female hippopotamus. Means great, Aha is the cycle of time. Deborah as Deborah represents the great time cycle of the female hippopotamus, who is Ta'ert, the female hippo in the Egyptian planisphere, through whom the North Pole, the ecliptic passes. This makes her the regulator or judge of the great year, 26,000 years, i.e. of celestial time. In the time of Deborah, the magnetic North Pole ran through the jackal, one of whose names was Sab, which also means judge in Egyptian. Let me see if I have it. Yeah, this is. You see that middle figure? That's the female hippopotamus, and that's the North Pole of the ecliptic. Let me see. Okay, come back to that. There's 2 North Poles. The Earth tilts 23.5 degrees for vertical because of the gravitational pull of the sun and moon. Then there's the North Pole of the ecliptic, which is the vertical North Pole. But because the Earth rotates on its axis and revolves around the sun, it wobbles. And that wobble means that the North Pole, the magnetic North Pole, goes around the North Pole of the ecliptic, the vertical North Pole. It takes 26,000 years to do that. Okay? And who was the one who was, shall we say, controlled that? Mythically speaking, Deborah, the hippo. Deborah. So she is the, as we said, she is the regulator, a judge of time. And you see it right there. Right there. That's jackal. Okay, this is interesting. Okay, let's take a minute for this. This is a jackal. That's where the North Pole, magnetic North Pole is right now. The Egyptians call it jackal, we call it the Great Bear. That's what Polaris is. And it revolves, that means it's one of the 7 circumpolar constellations. The jackal in, let's see, 1950, but in 40 years is going to move off of the pole because of precession. And you see this figure. This is the baboon, or the cynocephalic ape. Baboon or cynocephalic ape is a form of cloth or Jehudi. This is Ta'er, this is the jackal, this is the baboon, the cynocephalic ape. that will come into the North Pole starting about 40 years. That is the catholic, which we call Cepheus. So there's a new age, two new ages actually are going to start. One will start in 20 years, and the other will start in 28 years, and the other will start in 40 years. Let's just talk about this one. Try to keep it simple. Cepheus is the Babylon or cloth of Jehudi in this kind of spirit. But you know who Cepheus is to the Greeks? Cepheus is of Greece. He is a king. But you know what kind of king he is? He is an Ethiopian king. He is the great, divine, celestial Ethiopian king, and he will begin to rule about 2051 AD at the North Pole for 3,703 years. There are some implications of that, but let's keep going. I'm trying to finish this as quickly as possible. Torah, the book of the celestial cycles. King James, we call the Old Testament. The Hebrews call it the Torah. The Hebrew is the Hebrew holy book that became the Christian Old Testament. The Egyptian as Terah. Terah is time or tree. Aha is cycle. Torah as Terah Aha is the book of the celestial cycles of time, who was first authored by Deborah. Remember the judge or the regulator of time? Terah Aha might also be the cycle of the tree, a reference to the North Pole around which flows celestial time as the precession of great year. So, if you know how to read it, the heavens are a vast book in which everything that has happened and is going to happen is written. Cycle. 26,000 years. And even though this was, as it were, configured, and perhaps not even as late as Nile Valley civilization, maybe even earlier, but it gets you're finding it gets woven in to the Old Testament.
That's right.
It actually gets woven into the New Testament too. But that's not our topic. Now can you begin to sense just how much has been lost? Well, it hasn't been lost. How much has been forgotten? Ignored. Rejected. It's not lost.
I just they don't want the truth out there.
Yes, but I mean, part of what I'm saying is that people back in the sense themselves turned away from it.
And you're saying this isn't mythology. The more you talk, the more it sounds like mythology. It was made up.
No. That's the thing. It's not made up in the way. It's not made up in the way that you mean.
That's right.
It evolves out of what I call the psychosymbolic experience of human beings, connected to actual events. You know, for example, what we find in medicine is that when there are, shall we say, psychological causes for illness, it always connects to something in the biochemistry of the body.
That's right.
Even though it's intangible because it's psychic or psychological or mental, but there's something in the body, in the biochemistry of the body, to which it links and makes things happen. Mythology is exactly the same way. It drives things, but it's connected to real things that happen. Just like this 26,000 year cycle. That's real. Cepheus coming in 2051, that's real. But there has been a story around it. There's a story. What I might recommend that you do, if you ever get a chance to encounter a real, authentic Yoruba Babalawo, who is a master of Ifa, sit and talk with him. It's usually him, mostly him. Because they will show you the way in which 200,000 stories relate to actual events in human life. Your life and life of everybody else. but they're stories. Even fairy tales, that's what they are, you know. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is a great mother and her 7 primordial children. The evil witch is the great dragon that swallows the sun, but is conquered by the reborn sun. There is no fairy tale that does not have its antecedents in ancient mythology, but also things that are real. That's why we read in these fairy tales over and over and over again, because they touch something at the very core of who we are. And you say, well, this is Grimm's fairy tales. I can find you every one of these fairy tales in Africa if you want. Every one of them. The archetypes. Because the archetypes, you see, archetypes don't change. And you can find them everywhere in the world. Everywhere. That's why we go to fairy tales. That's why we go to these Disney movies. And that's why we read. I used to love reading fairy tales. These are 200 and 300 years old. Because, as I say, they connect to things. So, again, if I want to try to convey something, if I don't want to convey anything else, do not think that fiction is something that's made up. Mythology is something made up. It evolves out of what I call your psycho-spiritual experiences, connected fundamentally to everything that you are, have been, and will be. I'm almost at the end, so I'll have a chance to get to your questions here in a minute. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's good. This is the last one. This is a good one. This shows you all the things I've been telling you about the cycle. This is the North Pole ecliptic, the vertical North Pole. Okay, but the Earth is not sitting straight up down vertical north. It tilts 23.5 degrees. You see that? And because it does that, it wobbles. And this North Pole wobbles around that North Pole like that. But it takes this North Pole 26,000 years to get back to that point. And I'll show you over here too. Okay? You see the vertical North Pole, the magnetic North Pole, and it wobbles. And it takes 26,000 years to get from its original point back to where it started. The ancients knew it. We can spend 2 hours talking about nothing but that. Because you don't know it. We are being impacted by the fact that there are 2 ages that are coming in within 11 years of one another in this century.
What's the 2 ages?
One is I'm sorry?
What's the 2 ages?
Since the Dogon, they knew there were a star up there without the telescope.
Yes.
They knew it.
Yes.
Is that innate?
But yes, I think you're really close to it. You have to understand, and this isn't just, I'm going to say Africa, it isn't just Africa. You can find it among traditional peoples everywhere. The sense that there's 2 you. There's a physical you and there's an energetic you. It's not a copy of you, it's you energetically. It's that you that dreams. It's that you that has psychic experiences. It's that you that has intuitions. It's that you that, you're trying to make a decision. You wake up in the morning and a thought comes into your head. That's the you talking. But then you wake up and your other you comes in and says, that was just a dream. Forget about it. But it's those things that come into your head that you don't think about that are the authentic communications to you from your energy. Okay, why am I saying this? Because you see, there's something which we have lost. Through that, you see, dreams are not just fantastic experience, phantasmagoric experience you have in sleep. They're actually a way to travel to other worlds. Every other people in the world, since the time again, knew it and used it, except us. Well, I'm going to say us. I'm talking about the Western world. Until then, Freud started kind of coming back with it about 100 years ago, and Jung, and now we're beginning to re-examine dreams, okay? But a lot of people, so what the Dogons say? Dogons say through your energy body and your dreams, you can go to anywhere in the universe. Anywhere without any rockets. Because you see, you're not limited by time, because we are limited by time and space in our physical bodies. Your energy body is not. That's the reason why you have these strange stories that come to you in your dreams. Women are the best dreamers.
Yeah.
Barring none. There are some men who are good too, but women are born with it. So when a woman tells me she has a dream and it's coherent, I say, okay, pay attention to it. Because among Native Americans and Africans and other peoples, when you have a dream, you are supposed to do what it tells you to do. Because all your problems, basically, there's somebody out there through your dreams who is trying to tell you what to do about your problem. Now, like I say, but we're not listening. You know, they're dialing in. The Africans say it's your ancestors dialing in when they get the busy signal. Yeah. You know, I have friends of mine, even back in college. I just never could understand this. The first thing they did when they got up in the morning, first thing they did, they turned on the what? Television. They didn't go to the bathroom, they didn't shower, they didn't brush their teeth, they didn't eat breakfast. The first thing they did was turn on the television. Training. Wouldn't be a bad idea if we just, for a year, just say no television. I mean, not going to happen, but it wouldn't be the worst thing that could happen. Okay, my point is that, yeah, they have other ways of knowing. And we're finally beginning to become at least willing to accept that there are other ways of knowing. Now, someone was asking about the two ages. The two ages are, the first age in 2039 is the age of Aquarius. But it's really the original Aquarius in the ancient, again, you go back to the ancient archetypes, it's actually feminine. Hathor Nut. She wore a water base on top of her head. The great mother, the great nurse. It's only later that it became turned into something masculine, the water bearer of Aquarius. So that means, that age means that these things in the feminine domain are coming back into play in a way they were suppressed over the last 200 years. 2,000 years. Wasn't supposed to happen, but it did. I don't have time to go into that either. But it's coming back into play. The second age, the two ages is they kind of run together. Is the age of Cepheus, like I told you. The age of the cosmic Ethiopian king. It's the age of wisdom and justice. It isn't just him. He's an archetype, mythological archetype. But you know what he is: wisdom, justice, science, knowledge, and he's kind of a magician. And there's been two movies where you find him in modern popular, and he's not, though not an African guy, he's not always an African guy. Where you find him in two very successful movies. Anybody want to guess what they are? Recent last 5 years.
X-Men?
No, not quite. You're kind of getting there though.
Is that nature?
No. Okay, well, let me give you some more hints. Remember, he's going to be older. He's going to be the magus. He's going to be white-haired. He's going to have a staff. Harry Potter is one. That's what's his name? Not Voldemort. Albus. Albus Dumbledore. And by the way, the word Dumbledore, name Dumbledore, you know what it means? It means scarab. You know that? Okay, but there's another one. Even Gandalf. Gandalf is the other form of keeper. Yeah, who? Gandalf. Yeah. What is he? Again, what did I say? Wise. He's white hair because the form of Cepheus, like Obatala in among the Yoruba, white. He wears white. Now I tell black people, don't get so hung up on this color business. Colors are colors. And white is the sacred color to Obatala. And you also find it among the sage, magician, judge, white hair. And he doesn't, he's not always an African guy. He takes other forms. So the Gandalf is one form, and Dumbledore is another. So you can see these. What happens is these archetypes start jumping up out of people's the collective unconscious, and people don't even know what they mean
That's right.
or why they're happening.
But in Nigeria, the white skin, etc., that's represents
Yeah,
deadness.
okay, but that's the albino. But that's the white skin. We're not talking about, but if you look at the king of the gods, King Oba, the Oba of the Orisha, Obatala, his sacred color is white. Now, yes, just like we take, this society, black is death. In certain parts of Africa, the symbol, the color of death is white, as you say. But there's also Obatala's sacred color. Yes?
You officially in the question and answer?
Yeah. I want to
Okay,
take yours, and then I got a few questions over on this side of me that I need to answer.
Okay, I want to do this once. I got 3 short questions. One related to the Kemet calendar, another one related to the Judaic people, another one related to the Talmud. Okay, as far as the Kemetic calendar, when is the new year of the Kemetic calendar? When is the new year, and is it related to the ancient star system Sirius
Yes.
and the flooding of the Nile?
Yeah, but the new year is always in the sign. Almost always in the sign of
Leo,
Leo.
in July.
Leo, July.
So the new year is coming up.
Yeah, in ancient Kemet. That's right.
Okay. Second question about the Judaic people. Did you want to say anything else about the
No,
calendar?
that's enough of that.
All right. Second question about the Judaic people. You say that these Hebrews, they were sheep herders who
Started out.
Yeah,
More
they started
Hebrews.
out. They embraced Kemetic culture and ethnic identity to have a better quality of life. They assimilated.
That's one way of putting it. Yeah.
Right. So far as the Orthodox Jews of the day, how much of ancient Kemetic culture is they actually practicing today in their Judaic culture? Is it 50%, 30%?
Well, I
What
don't
would
think
you
put a
say?
percentage. I would say it's much attenuated, but it hasn't disappeared. Because there were, after all, later on, peoples who converted to Judaism, especially the people called the Khazars.
Right.
They were called the 13th tribe, in fact, and they were from the Caucasus region of Russia.
Right.
It hasn't disappeared. Now, it might be attenuated, might be changed, particularly you mentioned the Talmud. Because the Talmud was actually a commentary on the Torah that began about 200 AD. Interesting thing about the Talmud. You know what the writers of the Talmud called Jesus or Yahushua? You know what they called him? You know what they called him? He said they were against him, totally against him. They called him that Egyptian sorcerer. The Egyptian sorcerer. So the Talmud, yes, by that time, with that commentary of the Talmud and some, then a lot of things had their own development that took them away from those origins.
Since you're going into the Talmud, what I wanted to ask you about that is there any correlation between the Talmud and the Old Testament, or
Well, it's a commentary. It's mostly a commentary on the Old Testament.
It's a commentary.
By the rabbis, mostly of Babylonia.
Okay, and the last question is, going back to the Jewish people, the Hebrew language that they use. How much is that any relationship to the Kemetic language, or is it something totally different?
No, that was not totally different. Okay, there's a lot of controversy about whether there's even a category of languages called the Afro-Asiatic, which is supposed to include Egyptian, Cushitic, Hausa, Chadic, Arabic, Syriac, Hebrew, and one or two others. I can't get in that controversy because that's a controversy between linguists. However, as I said earlier, that's what this whole show is about. Is to show you the ways in which so many names, particularly personal names and place names, you can get their etymology, their origins, though Hebrew, out of the Egyptian language. So there's no way that there was not a maximum impact of the ancient language of the Nile Valley on the Hebrew language and on Hebrew theology. Now, it's not recognized, right, or it's not acknowledged, but it's there. Same thing with Christians. Saying Christians don't either.
Exactly.
Christians say, well, yeah, our influences are Jews and the Greeks. That's like having a three-legged stool with only two legs.
That's right. That's a great answer.
The most important influence, the biggest it's so much of a company. I don't want to get too much into it because I got to answer a few more questions.
Thank you.
Now, let's go over here because they've been patient over here wanting to ask me questions.
Okay, sir. So when you had mentioned like the origin of, say, like Yahweh, so what Allah was a moon god too? Did you attribute that to Osiris as well?
I think she was. A feminine. You know, remember the Earth, the oldest moon deities were feminine.
Got you right.
And yes, the Arabs, like the Jews, the Semitic peoples, are very much attached to that lunar mythology or mythos. Even though it got, you know, I mean, look at the symbol of Islam. The crescent, and anyone know what the star is? It's not actually a star, it's a planet. You want to know what planet it is? Venus. Yeah. Star is which also is one of there was a Venus calendar in Babylonia.
That's right.
And the Dogon have a Venus calendar. So, going back to your original question, Allah was definitely, and she was older than Allah. And she was a moon deity. Because at first, Hathor and Isis, but mostly Hathor, is the oldest moon goddess. She's older than, as a moon deity, she's older than any of the male moon deities. There are 3, maybe 4. There's Jehudi, Osiris, Yah, and Constant. 4.
Right. Then this last question, later, so they can get the chance. The Libyan people, you know, I have a old ancient, well, it's not to say that I do have an old ancient Bible, and I collect rare and ancient books. And the Bible, this particular Bible that I have, it basically says, and it shows about the Libyan people being brown skinned.
Well, what you
So,
say,
we get
that's interesting. I can actually respond to that, okay?
because they got them just, they're white.
Yes. You're right, and you're so totally right. And I'll tell you how you're right. Most of the light-skinned Libyans, to the extent they were there, were all from the coast, narrow strip of coast. There are people in Senegal. I traveled to Senegal somewhere between 35 and 40 times. Those are the blackest people in the world, along with some of the Sudanese and a few others. And there's a large group of them they're called Lebu. And they say, well, you know, we came from Libya. Because Lebu, you know what Lebu actually meant? Lebu actually in ancient Egyptian language meant lion. And also is a name for these people who lived in what they call Libya. But and a lot of them did migrate to the western part of Africa. And if you go into that, into the temple, the tomb of Ramses III, you see the ones that we showed you. Yeah, they are brown skinned, but if you go further south, they're just black. So you got to,
The light ones come in because they use the terminology white skin.
Yeah, but that's recent. That's very recent. That's all. We can go into a whole thing about that. There's a couple of others over here. I want to take questions before I go back. Man, let's go to the lady and then we'll do this one.
I just want to make a statement and then I have a question. My first statement was the whole thing about myth that you kept saying. I just want to piggyback off that. What I understand is we don't really have a true understanding of words in our culture. We don't even have an understanding of what the words that we use really mean. I mean, I teach religious studies and comparative religion. The word myth means nothing more basic than a story. It has nothing to do with anything false. So if you keep saying myth over and over again and you believe that the word means false, now everything we do in our world, not just ancient, this is what human beings do. We make myths or stories around what is already true. Movies, novels, books, everything. That's what human beings do. So there really isn't any such. There's nothing that in our world that is really false. Human beings don't just make stuff up out of the blue. It all has an element of truth to it, or it's actually true. It's just a story built around it to explain it, and maybe in an entertaining way or however you want to look at it. but we do it to this day.
Yeah.
Our whole world is myth. Our whole world is stories. That's just what human beings do.
Thank you.
So if you don't understand the language, and we just don't. It's out in our own world. It's not just black people, white people, whatever. We have, in Western culture, we just like, don't know, our own culture. You know?
We can talk, Carl Jung and Joseph Campbell have a lot to say about that, because it is because of what they call the demythology, because Western culture has become demythified, is at the root of a good bit of its problems. Because it has no, when you lose myth, you lose a sense of divine.
Well, it's just like when you said about Judeo-Christianity, stool with 3 legs on it too. I mean, that's just our culture. There's no real foundation there at all, and that's why it's just has fallen apart, because there isn't one. But what you were saying here too about how we're going into 2 ages right now, does this have something to do with, the weather? I don't see how people can look at the weather and just think, oh well. I mean, you have 9 tornadoes or hurricanes one day. There's something going on, you know?
It isn't just the weather. It isn't just the weather. Okay, what happens when you got 2 ages coming in, so it's kind of a double. Always, when you look back at these things, you look back at shifts in the ages, going back in history, there's always a period of anywhere from 100 to 150 years where everything breaks down. Socially, politically, economically, environmentally, weather disasters, everything sort of a perfect storm of bad things, not bad things, shall we say, destructive things happen to do what? That's right. To make way with it. Out with the old, in with the new. So all of these, it isn't just the weather, the tornadoes, the flood, the fires in Texas. It's also the near collapse of the economy 2 years ago. The physical problems, the social problems, the crime, everything you see, where everything just seems to be coming apart, is all interconnected. Yes. And it is affected. We don't have time to go into in-depth discussion of this. But yes, that is what we're being affected by. It isn't just the weather. Again, that's part of it. Yes, sir.
You know, one of the slides, I just missed, you talked about Jacob, the QE.
Yeah, it means, let's see. Yeah, it means circuit. It means the circuit. So circuit of the sun or circuit of the moon. We need it in both cases.
Like the rotation.
Yes. Uh-huh. Okay, let's start here and then kind of come up here. We'll take, what, 4 or 5 more questions?
That's good.
Yeah. Huh? Okay, there'll be 6.
Really quick. The Declaration of Innocence, is that the same thing as 42?
So-called negative, that's my word, Declaration of Innocence. To me, that's what they are, not negative. Negative convention doesn't make any sense to me. So I've just taken the call of the Declaration of Innocence. But that's basically, yeah, that's what it is.
And then the other, I listened to a tape where he had made a culminating point, which we touched on today, which was that this was actually Dr. Beer's group in Harlem a while ago.
Yeah,
And
first world, not first time, first world, yes.
Yeah, and it was that those things that we're today in a pattern where things have already happened and repeated themselves. Mm-hmm. Is that a metaphor, or is that?
Okay. Let me just tell you. Okay, let me just tell you what. I spent a lot of time in Africa. I spent a lot of time with African. I don't know if you want to call them shamans. I don't know what else they call them. People who are spiritual practitioners. They say, here's what they say: everything that's happened on earth has already happened in heaven. So everything that has happened, is happening, has happened. Will happen again, although at a different level of spiral. Time is cyclic, not linear.
You mentioned calendar.
I'm sorry?
I said you mentioned calendar.
I'm getting old, so my hearing is as good as it used to be.
Can you speak to the Egyptian origin of the Mayan 2012 prophecy?
You see, I always get that question. I'm never sure how to answer it. They're connected, but I just don't have a good way of showing how they're connected. Because the Mayans are probably, well, I would say the Mesoamericans, not just the Mayans, but also the Olmecs, Toltecs. They're the only people that was obsessive and detailed and precise about timekeeping and astronomical cycles as Egyptians. I mean, they were just, they almost went overboard with it. Now, so they too, for centuries on end, kept detailed observations and records. I would have to do more study of the Mayan calendar and try, because I don't quite know. My only way of answering that question for myself is say, to me, it's like it's like the first bell. We used to have 3 bells in order to get ready to do something. It's like the first signal of the vast changes that are already being felt. Now, they're not talking about the end of the world. They're talking about the end of a world cycle.
Or age.
That's what they're talking about. And so I think that that's the first signal of the end and also a beginning of a world age, which are interconnected. That's about as much as I can say right now. I don't have any more depth to it than that. Right here, yes.
Okay, well, how will the Ethiopian uses the Ethiopian ruler of the North Pole? When will this take place? How will it affect our lives right now?
Wait a minute. You shouldn't even be asking that question. It starts 2050. It's already taken place, and it started taking place in 2008. What do you think that was about? What happened November 5th, 2008?
Oh, man.
I mean, that wasn't supposed to, nobody, who in this room, even 3 months out, believed that could possibly happen? Yeah, me too. Okay, my point is, what I'm saying is already, that's just one sign that it's already happened. You see, that's the thing. These things, these ages, when they start, showing their effect, they don't just start at the time. They start showing their effects like years ahead of time, decades even ahead of time. My honest opinion about the first inkling of the coming age of Cepheus, 120 years ahead of time, was the crowning of Haile Selassie. That's my opinion. I wouldn't go to court on it, but that's what I believe.
Because your research.
So what I'm saying is, you're saying, how is this? It already is being. But it isn't just about a black king. Yeah, his image, but it's an archetype. What he really is the archetype of wisdom, justice. He is, there's another word I'm looking for, wisdom, justice, harmony. And so whenever that can manifest itself, though it is the cosmic Ethiopian king, can manifest itself also in other forms, in different places, and still be equally powerful. But the symbol is still going to be the cosmic Ethiopian king, even if there will be other manifestations of that symbol. Let me see. Yes, sir.
If I'm correct, I believe part of our English language, the language that we spoke was called, have you heard of libretto?
Say that again.
Libretto.
No. Speak it, spell it. Maybe if you spell it, I know what you're talking about.
I'm trying to think. Libretto. I can't think how to spell it, but I have the books and the audio CDs of a brother that did the research on the libretto language that we spoke as being Melanin people. And it goes all the way back to beyond the history as far as the Moors is concerned. And
I'm sorry, I would have to look at that myself. I can't speak to that. I don't know anything about it.
And then when you talk to, I'll give it to you on that. And then when we talk about different things that's happening on shifting, when one of the people said something, I looked at the fact that when Kennedy was killed, 100 years before that, it was Lincoln. When you look at the names, when we talk about things happening by, let's just, how can I put this? If somebody was asking me, what color am I? And I can say I'm black because I'm brown because of circumstance. If you put up under the sun. If you take another person, a Caucasian person, put them up under a European, and you did ask whether they're white, and they say it's because of circumstance, but it doesn't change their connection to wherever they go for our blood goes. So if I take the 100 years of what happened to Lincoln in the Kennedy Center versus 100 years later, here's a guy with last name Kennedy get killed, versus the secretary name for Lincoln, for Kennedy was Lincoln. You know, so we do look at history, and we talk about methodology and things.
You can call that a synchronicity.
I was going to ask you, what would you call it?
Yeah, that you call a synchronicity. What is a synchronicity? Synchronicity is a causal connecting factor. Two things are connected, but they're not causal, but they are connected through time and space by some force. Okay. Now you're going to make me go into an explanation. I'm going to try to keep it as short as possible. There's something in physics called the EPR phenomenon. If you look at quantum mechanics said two subatomic particles, if they're moving, subatomic particle, you can know its speed or its location, but you can't know both at the same time. Einstein said, oh, that can't possibly be true. And he said, just imagine you had two subatomic particles. One, they collided, one went light years in that direction, and the other one light years in the other direction. He says, you could determine the speed of one, right, okay? No. Then you could determine the location of another, and then there are laws governing, for example, billiard balls, where you can determine how fast one ball's going after it hits another. So he says you can look at one location of one of those colliding subatomic particles, and then you can look at the speed of the other, and then by a reflexive calculation determine the speed of the first one, and therefore you could get by indirect and direct measurement a measurement of both speed and position. Okay. Now, except this is what he said. This is what he said. He said the only way this wouldn't be true is if there was some spooky action at a distance. Those were Einstein's exact words. Now he just assumed that had disposed of the whole argument until they found out in 1982, physicists replicated again and again over the next 10 years that yes, once two particles touch one another, no matter how far they go away, it could be light years, they still interact with one another, can even affect each other's speed. That's right. It's called now, in fact, because of demonstration of that, they have a concept in physics called entanglement, quantum entanglement. That means anytime anything touches, you think about that. Anything, there's entanglement there for really for eternity.
Handshake. Okay,
handshake. Other things we can mention. Okay, violent things. So now I'm getting to lose track of what we were talking about. Oh, we were saying that. Oh, you were saying, and see, that is what the quantum statement of Jungian synchronicity. Things are entangled. And some things that don't seem to have anything to do with anything in one century can and do have an impact in a most remarkable way on things that happen in another century. So yes, you can get, and this is all part of what after talking about the energy body, because the energy body is involved in that quantum entanglement. So remember this. Once you have touched anybody,
that's right.
This is the reason why some African spiritualists they're very careful. Right. They're careful about that. Yes. Okay. One or two last questions.
In 100 years, prior to before Lincoln. You had when they changed the Constitution as well, pretty much just about. And they had 12 years before it changed again. So when I look at all this that you're saying about people asking different questions and then get into today's society or what's going to happen in 2012 and so forth, if we just got to do the research and we can find some of the answers ourselves and prepare ourselves.
For what?
Prepare yourself for what?
The new age.
A new vibration.
A new vibration.
Well, let me just say this. I think let me just say this. It's the only answer I have to that question. That's simply this. Because people have asked me, okay, you're saying all this, Finch, and you see all these things happening around you, and things seem to, like William Butler Yeats, things fall apart, the center cannot hold. And I said, the only answer I can give you is that one must align yourself, if you have a chance of sort of getting through it, with the energy of the coming ages. I agree with you. Wow. That's basically what the whole message, you didn't say it this way, but that's what it amounted to. That's what Jesus' message was.
Mm-hmm. Not some kind of pleasant incident, correct?
Not some kind of what?
Not some kind of pleasant incident.
Oh, no.
That's the distortion.
That's basically what his message. Get in the, if you're attuned to the new energies that are coming in to guide the destinies of the world, then that's all preparation we need.
Can I make a quick statement?
Yes.
There was a question about the Mayan calendar.
Yes.
I think if anybody really want to understand the clarification on the Mayan calendar, you got to understand the roots of the Mayan culture that came out of the Olmec culture.
Yes.
Okay, so the culture and calendar came out of the Olmec culture. So if you really want to understand that calendar, you got to go back and study that black culture, the Olmec culture. And
which had Egyptian connections.
Well, had a very definite Nile Valley connection. Yes.
That was the point of my question.
Yeah, definitely.
But most of the Olmec culture and history was wiped out by the first century Dutch priesthood. So whatever, what's left, it can be found. It can be very enlightened.
I think we'll. Okay. No, wait. These are already spoken. Oh yeah. Oh, okay. I didn't bring that many. And three, and something that already been spoken for. So,
which book is that?
That's the problem. The reason I didn't bring many is because this book doesn't really deal with the subject matter. That's the only reason I didn't bring that in. Okay? That book, which deals with subject matter, is in the process of being reprinted because it's sold out. But it'll be ready in early July. That's Echoes of the Old Darkland, Themes in the Afternoon. We talked about where I have written about all these things that we showed.
Yes, great.
That's the reason why I didn't bring a lot of these, because it's not really about what we talk about. People still want it. I started with one. This one, Star Deep Beginnings, the Genesis of African Science and Technology. And this is a, what do you call it, DVD, Wheel of Heaven, the Astronomical Chronology of the Nile Valley. Of course. You always order.
Put your orders in.
I think the best thing to do is probably contact me at my email. That's easily the best thing. Write me, send me an email, and I'll tell you exactly what you have to do if you want to order these or any other books. In fact, the book that's now being reprinted, Echoes of the Old Darkland, Themes in the Afternoon. We talk about the Old Testament and the New Testament. Yeah.
Those are 3 eyes.
Yes. 3 eyes, sorry. It's my, I'm Charles Finch III. This is just, otherwise, so I think, if I'm not mistaken, I only got this thing left. So This is, for here, this is $20, this is $25. This is what's left. Like I said, I only brought a handful because I didn't think there was going to be that much demand. But there you go. Anyway,
Dr. Charles Finch. Absolutely. If anybody needs to see
Give me that oil. Good religion. Give me that oil. Yes, good religion. Give me, wow, give me that all. Time, religion. Because this is one thing that I believe, children. I believe that is good. I wonder would you mind if I just said it one more time? I believe that is wow, yeah, so good, so good, yes sir. Oh yeah, so good to me.
Mercy me. All things ain't what they used to be now. Where did all the blue skies go? Poison is the wind that blows from the north and south and east. Oh, mercy me. All things ain't what they used to be now. Oil wasted on the oceans and upon our seas, fish full of mercury. Oh, mercy me. All things ain't what they used to be. No. Radiation underground and in the sky. Animals and birds who live nearby are dying. Mercy me. All things and what they used to be. What about this overcrowded land? How much more will you from me? Can't you stand?